Welcome, my good people. Welcome. So let's just get right into it. Today is April 13th, 2022. This is my very first podcast. I'm excited about it and at the same time a little apprehensive, but it is all good. It'll be all right. I just wanted to start off pretty easy at this point in the episode, but I am going to get directly, I'm going to get right into it. I don't have any choice really. So, backstory. Um, I started a mentoring business 2 years ago, actually. And I've had my share of ups and downs and insecurities and things of that nature. And while I was getting it off the ground, I had a coach that helped me, and she worked really hard. She worked really hard to support me and clean up some of the things that I was doing, kind of smooth out those rough edges. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but there were so many things that she had worked with me on, and I'm so appreciative of that work. But we know that sometimes certain things happen in our lives that almost make us feel like the work that we've done is either work that maybe we misunderstood, or it could have even been work that was imperative for the growth to move on to the next step. And I know for me, I really felt like the work that Tina did with me, and that's, I might as well just go ahead and shout her out, Tina Bailey, Build Her. The work that she did with me was work that was really crucial to what I'm actually doing now. I never would have thought or never would have understood that at the time. I just kind of thought, hey, I'm trying to get a business off the ground. I'm just trying to do a little something. We'll see how it works out. But all that to say that everything that you do, whatever it is that you do, it is a step in a direction that is going to take you to your next, I guess, episode, or maybe to your not necessarily episode, but it's taking you to the next step if you allow it, if you're paying attention to it, if you give it attention. And I have to say that if I hadn't had that training and that insight from Tina initially, because I had started businesses before that didn't work out, but after working with her, I understood why they didn't. So here I am working my way through, doing my thing with the business that I had started, which was the mentoring business to mentor educators, and I was having a good time at it. And I'm a mom. I'm a mother of two, and I have adult kids, 23 and 25. So in September, I lost my son to a homicide. Someone attempting to rob him, and the way my son was, the type of person that my son was, he was not just going to hand over anything. And as a result, this individual did end up shooting him, and he transitioned September 18th, 2021. 2 months before his 22nd birthday. And there were things that, going through this process of grief and of healing, that I noticed and I realized that I was definitely prepared by professionals that I didn't even realize how important they were. Again, one of them was Tina, but the one that I actually do compliment and credit for the stability part, for focusing on the calm and focusing on the part that helped me to get through, was a therapist that I had been seeing for several years, at 5 years to be exact. His name is Tobias Legrone. Tobias had been preparing me for 5 years. I had no idea what he was preparing me for, but now that I understand that he was preparing me to be able to deal with a storm of such magnitude that without his help and without my work and my doing this work, I just don't think I would have survived it. I know I would not have survived it. So there are people that are in place to do things to impact us. And if we are honest enough, and if we are brave enough, and if we focus enough, we can get through, and we will grow through that process. And when those storms come, we will sustain them. And looking back and thinking about the different things that had transpired in my life, where my son was concerned, where both of my kids were concerned, I really didn't feel that this would be where I am. I really didn't. I would have never guessed that. Again, this would be where I am. I'm a stronger person now. I think I'm a more patient person now. But just the grieving process, which is the focus of the show today, the grieving process and the importance in valuing the grieving process and how important it is to go through your grieving and go through your grieving with support, but independently. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, what I mean by grieving with support, but independently. It may sound a little cold, or it may sound like I'm kind of advocating to be alone. I'm not advocating to be alone, so to speak, but I am advocating that you take responsibility for your own grieving process. Because at the end of the day, those who are not dealing with or who are not going through what you are going through, they have the right to live their lives, and they should be able to live their lives. And that's something that I didn't realize while I was going through the grieving process. So when my son passed, when he transitioned, whatever it is that you would like to call it, he had passed before we were told that he had passed. And I know that because when I look at his death certificate, I see what time he was pronounced deceased. I see that, and I know what time it was when we had actually spoken to the surgeon that had worked on him. The story, is a little longer than I'd like to. It's more than I'd like to get into right now. But I will say that when we found out that he had transitioned, it was just a moment of silence. I remember for myself. I remember my husband grieving loudly. I remember that. And I remember being on the phone with my daughter, with his sister, with my son's sister, obviously. I remember being on the phone with her, and she is incredibly, incredibly strong and focused. And she got off the phone so that she could call her grandmother and her family on her side. On her dad's side, rather. Her dad was in no condition to do that. And I called my family members on my side. And I did have to take a deep breath because I had to process and I had to realize that this was actually happening. And recognize that there is something that I'm supposed to be not only doing, but there's something that I'm supposed to be learning. I don't know yet, but there's something that I'm supposed to be learning through this process. When I called my family members, and I pause even saying this, but when I called my family members on my side of the family, I didn't get a response. I didn't get... no one picked up. Out of the 3 people that I called, no one picked up. The 4th person did. And I talked to my nephew and explained to him what had happened. And he had to go and physically talk to everyone else because, like I said, they hadn't picked up. I called my sister. She picked up right away. And I explained to her what happened. And I don't really remember what order I called anyone. I just know that my sister and my nephew picked up. But my other family members didn't. I feel like within 5 minutes, my in-laws showed up. My mother-in-law and brothers-in-law showed up. My sister-in-law showed up. My side of the family is not in the state. There was literally no way they could have shown up immediately. But those that were local did. Then I started to see friends that had shown up. Then Tobias showed up, my therapist. And I didn't get much peace, of course. But I did have the strength and I did have the togetherness of my family. My husband and I have been married 25 years, so, my in-laws are truly my family. Throughout that day, it was just an uneasy day. Not necessarily chaotic. It was just uneasy. And I don't remember sleeping, and I don't remember eating, and I don't remember conversations that I know I had. I don't remember those things. But what I do remember is that I had to wait for my people to respond to me. That's what I remember. So in the process of grieving, we can grieve many different ways, but the way I see it in a simple format is we can grieve one of two ways. We can either grieve angrily or we can grieve in a way that is peaceful. I know for me, I grieved in a way that was angry. However, I didn't really show it as outwardly screaming at anybody or anything like that. But I know I grieved in a way that was angry because I needed to blame people. I needed to blame them for not picking up the phone, and I needed to blame them for not calling soon enough, and I needed to blame them for these different things. When you grieve to learn. And you grieve to learn about some experiences that you really and truly do not understand. That is understandable not to understand. But the grief process itself is one that is such a wide range, it's almost without explanation. You literally cannot explain it. But at the same time, it's a feeling that is so overwhelming that you have to process in chunks or you have to process in stages. And each stage is going to feel so much more different because your emotions are going to be in a different place with each stage because it's just not measured. Grief is just not measured. And when I think about my family and the way that they responded, my side of the family, that is. So given the experience that I was having with my side of the family, it made me realize a few things. Even though there are people that I talked to that were a little surprised by the response, there's something that I had to realize, and that thing was that their response really didn't have anything to do with me. That is a representation of who they are and the space that they live in. Whether or not I agree with the way they responded really doesn't have anything to do with it. To be honest, the way they responded is who they are. The way they didn't respond is who they are. Now, that's my family. Do I love them any less? I felt like at one time I did. I felt like at one time that I did. I have to be honest about that. But at the same time, I can't expect for them to be who I am. And I can't expect for them to be who my in-laws are. I can't expect them to do that. That is who they are. And even though I was upset, and even though I'm still processing, and I'm still honestly at a point where I have not completely forgiven for it, I know in my mind, I understand it. I recognize that that's who they are. Does that make them bad people? No. Does that make them disengaged? Yes. Yes. We all become disengaged at a time. And I hope that the time that I am disengaged or decide that, hey, I want some me time, I hope that that doesn't fall at a time that they are reaching out because it's an emergency or because they need me. But if you find yourself in a place where you simply don't want to engage at all, something will happen that will show you that there's something that is missing. So what did I need to learn from that? What did I need to get from that experience? I needed to understand, I think, and there's probably more than just this, but I needed to understand that the family that I have locally is a family that's engaged, is a family that's going to do whatever it is that they need to do. Because when they showed up, it was like they never left. They didn't leave for a couple of weeks. My husband and I did our son's ceremony. Well, actually, his sister planned everything and had support from my sister-in-law and my sister. They work very closely, and friends of mine work very closely together to plan this celebration. And when the celebration was planned, they were all there setting up, putting up tables and putting chairs in position, all of these other things. They were there 6:00 in the morning setting up at this park and making sure everything was what it needed to be. My family, my side of the family had made it here by that time. But for me, it was just later than it should have been. And it's still taking some time to forgive. So that grieving process, not only does it put you in a different frame of mind, but it will also, at least for me, it will also make it very difficult to forgive. Very difficult. This situation is one that's definitely unique. And it's unique because you realize that people are so intertwined. They're so deep in their own lives that they don't consider the lives of others. Is that wrong? I wouldn't call it wrong, but I will say it seems to me to be imbalanced. When you isolate yourself to the point that you have no understanding or no care for others, that's an imbalance because it's 100% about you and what you want. Now, I know that we're in an era of self-care and doing what you want and doing what you feel is good for you, but too much of anything is negative. Too much of any one thing is an imbalance. That I know. I will say that in the grieving process, when we grieve in ways that are, yes, painful, but we grieve in ways that are learning experiences. I did learn that I have two different families. I have a family that will do whatever needs to be done, regardless of how much they're inconvenienced. It doesn't matter. They're still going to do it. I can actually remember thinking that they're too close. I'd actually made that statement. Oh, his family, Brian's family is too close. I used to say that. And then my son got shot. Then my son passed away. And they could never be too close. After that, I found that you could almost never be too close. Boundaries can always be put in place if you feel that that needs to happen. And there are numerous ways to do that. But when I look at their family and how close they are, I recognize that there's something culturally different about Brian's family and about my family. Now, does it mean that I need to change my family? No, I don't think that's what it means. But I definitely think that looking back, the expectation that I had from my family was one that just wasn't going to be met. It just wasn't going to be met. My uncle, who lives locally, was definitely here. His daughter came, and I'm very close to her. And again, my sister came, and my sister was here. Yeah, she just showed up and just said she was staying just as long as I needed. And I think about it, and it makes me emotional all over again, because I know that she dropped everything to be here and to make sure that I was okay. She inconvenienced herself, and she dropped everything to be here. And our friend was here as well, and he was very supportive. And I'm so grateful for him. He's been around our family for a long time. And I truly, truly appreciated what he brought as far as comfort and just being able to be there. Just being able to be there. Again, I don't want to take from my family the fact that they did come, but grief itself. Grief will not really allow you to see a picture in the same view as you would see it if you were not grieving. The overwhelming issue and the overwhelming situations that happen within that period of time become really difficult to deal with, and you need a team. You definitely do need a team. But you still have to be independent at some point in time, and you still have to feel. You still have to find the light within your grief. You still have to find it. And I know that sounds strange. I know it probably doesn't make sense to most. But everyone that is listening to this podcast, everyone is going to grieve at some point, or someone is going to grieve over you. One of the two. Most of you have already felt grief. Maybe not of your own child, maybe not that, but you felt it. And when you go through that period, the one thing that I can take away from that, the grieving that I have experienced so far, has been 6 months now. But the one thing that I can take away from that is understanding that 100% of who an individual is who that individual will be during your grieving process. They have not changed. They will just show up 100% of who they were in the first place. They are not going to change just because you're grieving. That is 100% who they are. Again, does it make them a bad person? It does not. It does not. But it does make them someone who has decided to disengage. So at that point, when you recognize that this is an individual, or this is a family member, this is a loved one, or this is a friend that has decided to disengage, you then have a choice to make. Whether or not you can forgive that, put them in the correct place, as my coach would say, put them in the correct place in your audience. It may not be the front row. It may very well be the balcony. They may very well have a nosebleed seat. But you need to figure out where that individual belongs in your life. And it's important that you do that, because if you don't, you will end up becoming angry because they are not conforming to what it is that you want them to be. And our life has nothing to do with getting others to conform to what it is that we want people to be. But it does have to do with you growing yourself personally and making sure that you are being the best that you can be. Hopefully that light that you shine from yourself onto others will encourage them. But our job, our journey is not to conform people into who we are. We're all different individuals. We're all, as I heard a woman saying the other day, we're all snowflakes. So we all look completely different. We're human, yes, but we all look different. We move different. We feel different. All of those things. And the important part is that we recognize and that we accept the differences in others and respect the differences in others. I have family members who are not going to show up because they are more interested in doing the things that they like to do and making themselves happy. And at the end of the day, that's all it is, doing what they want to do and making themselves happy. And that is the circle in which they continue to exist in. And I have to accept that. And I have to respect that. And at some point, forgive that. Because that's weight on me. That's weight on my heart when I don't forgive. And the grieving process makes it very difficult to forgive because you're in so much pain. But the grieving process does not have to be one that does not have a silver lining. The grieving process does also need to be a learning process. It's not just a get finished with this, check off a box. It is a learning experience. And I have learned, I think, through this process. It's only been 6 months, again, but I think that I have learned through this process that people are exactly who they have worked to become. You will always be able to tell who has put in the work to become a greater individual. And you can tell who has not put in any work. You can tell. And you probably already know who these people are. You're probably you have probably rattled off 5 or 6 names. Yep, I know who, yep, my cousin, or yep, my friend, or yep, my, whatever. Yes. Yes, they have accepted what they have not done, and that's where they're going to stay. You don't love them any less. You don't treat them any worse, but they are 100% who they've always been. And in a situation where you need support, they probably will not be there. Not because they don't want to be, but because they're busy being who they are. And the sooner that we accept that people are who they are, the better off we will be. But this piece about grief, I think it was important that I discussed that because I needed to kind of lay that down for the foundation of it all, because this is the first episode. And I needed to make sure that at least those listening realize and understand where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a place of a hurt mommy, very much so. I'm coming from a place of newness because this is a new me. I can feel my energy a little different than what it used to be pre-BJ, which is before my son transitioned. I know what my energy was like before that. I know. And I know what my energy is like now. I get spurts of myself, but I don't think I'll ever be the old Jodie again. That's not a bad thing, but I'm fully aware that going back to who I was before is not necessarily a bad thing, but it is definitely a person who was very much unaware of expectations for others and recognizing and realizing that I'm not going to be able to find me in anyone else. I'm only going to be able to find them. And as they evolve and as they do their work, I will be able to see some things that I wouldn't have been able to see before. But I have to make absolutely sure that I'm careful about how I address things, about how I address people, and about how I do my work, and about ensuring that I do my work. I will never, ever be done doing my work. That's just not what my life is going to be. I'll never be done doing my work, ever. I don't ever plan on retiring. That's just not, it's just kind of not what I'm feeling. I always want to be doing something that gives me joy, something that I'm able to do to serve others. That's what I'll always be doing in some way, shape, or form. And retirement is for some, but it's probably not for me. Getting back to that whole thing about grief, the other thing that I wanted to express about grief was to make sure that those that are around you, make sure that you try to get yourself to a place where you can continue to love those that are around you. Every other word and every other thought for so long was about BJ, was about my baby. Everything, I call him my baby all the time. But everything that I did, everything, I had to have yellow on because, yellow that's the birthstone, November, his birthday. And, everything was yellow. I made sure I had on something yellow every day, or made sure that my nails were yellow, or made sure that I had on a yellow scarf, or made sure that scarves are my thing. That's just what I do. But yeah, I had to always make sure that I had on some yellow. I had to always make sure that I, said something about sunshine every day. My sunshine, my SON sunshine, or SON Sunday. I was always doing that, and that's okay. That's fine. That's how I get my smile from BJ. That's okay. But I also have Kendra. And I don't want Kendra to get lost in the shuffle. So when we grieve, we tend to grieve and consistently think about what we are grieving. On your journey or during your journey of grieving, because everyone will experience it. Leaving room for others to come in and give you some positive energy and some light, and remaining present is also important. And I know it's asking a lot. because it was very difficult for me. But when I looked up, I realized that I had pictures of BJ everywhere. I had something acknowledging BJ everywhere, as if Kendra wasn't there. And that's when I had to be more mindful and be more present. Yes, during my grieving time. Can you imagine? During your grieving time, you are still responsible for being considerate. Yep. Job never ends. It's like 50 different tasks that you have to complete. But yeah, you still need to love. And that love will help you. It will help you. I still needed to give more love to Kendra. I still needed to give more love to Brian, because the three of us were literally, we were within that same family, within that same little group. It was us four. And now, it's us three. Mysteriously enough, my son's nickname, we never called him that, but all of his friends did. All of his friends from, within a certain time period, they all called him Three. And now that's what we are now. Now it's three of us and one in spirit. I'm going to go ahead and end now. And I hope that this podcast was one that gave you reflection, gave you insight, and also gave you a reason to reach out. So my email address is Fervor, F as in Frank, ERVOR, just like Fervor Voice, but Fervorish, Fervor with ISH on the end, at yahoo.com. Go ahead and reach out to me if you have any responses. I would love to hear those so that I could talk about them on the next podcast. Also, my website, fervorish.com. Right now, I'm doing some extra work on it. Again, this is post BJ, so everything is looking a little bit different. The platform that I had before, I found that there was kind of a lot of noise on there. And when I say noise, I just say people that are just kind of, liking things just because we're friends or just because, we're cool or whatever. And that's all nice. But I had a separate page for that. That was just friend talk, and another page for the business. And I think that the business page got kind of overcrowded with just friend talk. So now I'm trying a different platform, and I hope that this platform can be specific to those who want to do their work, not just the work, but their work. And I'd like to encourage everyone to go ahead and reach out. Once again, thank you everybody for joining me on my first episode. Thank you so much. Peace, love, and blessings.